Recently, here in Australia, things are just greening up after the worst drought in any Australian man's living memory. Drought is caused by many different factors. It is the government's job to learn about these factors and figure out what methods can be used to lessen the negative effect of drought on the environment, the economy, and the population of Australia. Drought in Australia has become a common occurrence because of the unique physical environment Australia has to offer. When you look at a cross-section view of Australia, you will realise that the east and west coast of Australia are higher than the central lands, so they practically protect the land from any rainfall that could hit the central part of Australia, or the central lowlands. Because of this, the centre of Australia is almost always dry and in drought. This area is where most of Australia's farms are located too, as this is the only place in Australia where there is space for farms. When drought hits the area, it dries them out to the point where they can no longer grow anything on their land. Farmers are forced to destroy their crop and their farm animals, gather up their family and belongings, sell their property and move to the city where they will be forced to find a new job. They have to do all of that because of the disastrous effect drought has on their farms.
Case study, Sam Aitken. For 5 years now, drought has shrouded the growth of crops and the well-being of farmers in country towns. They have been forced to either sell up or stay and see through the extreme hardship. Drought. Noun. A prolonged period of abnormally low precipitation, a shortage of water resulting from this. For farming families all across Australia, the stress of the economy, extremely dry crops, earning a low income, and extreme water restrictions is too much. This is Angus Gibson. He lives on a 5,000 acre property just outside Goulburn. His great-great-grandfather settled there in the late 1820s. Generation by generation, they've been there ever since. They've traditionally been a sheep and beef cattle farm. In 2007, for the first time in over 150 years, they completely destocked their sheep. He says the drought itself has impacted them in a number of ways. These include dams drying up completely, meaning that there are some parts of the property they cannot use at all. They are fortunate enough to have some water on the property, but he says they are one of the lucky ones. Even if the unlucky ones had food, they still have to cart for water, which is a soul-destroying experience. They have been suffering for drought for 5 years now, and here's Angus for more.
Droughts in the past have often been a bit patchy, so there's always been somewhere in the state that you could buy grain from or buy hay from. But when it's so widespread, then feed is very hard to get anywhere. Last year we were actually transporting hay from South Australia, which is a huge transport cost. As the drought ends, as we hope it will in the not too distant future, a lot of people are going to have to build their numbers up. We've destocked 6,500 sheep here. To get back up to our breeding numbers will either be a very expensive option or it'll be a very long option. And either way, the community are going to have to pay by a greater scarcity of product and therefore higher prices. I think the other thing is that for as long as you are destocking, you keep cutting back your numbers and you have genetics that you've been breeding with for many, many years, and you lose that. So often you lose some very valuable stock, and it takes a long time to get that same quality of stock back into production. I think the biggest thing about drought that affects people is that, unlike a flood or a fire, which happens, does damage, and you get on with repairing the damage almost the next day, a drought goes on, and it just saps your will, saps your confidence, saps your hope, I suppose, and it's that long lingering nature of drought that makes it so hard to cope with. We're hoping in the future that we can make a go of the property and that it can be financially viable for the next generation. But I've got to say, the rural industry is just about on its knees at the moment. Recently, a couple of days ago, I was in Bathurst for a climate change conference, and it was attended by probably over 300 people, which was very encouraging to me because it just shows that public awareness has risen considerably in really the last 12 months, 18 months. The same conference held 2 years ago would have had a dozen people probably. We've got to look at valuing, as I said, not just the production of the usual meat and beef and wool off a property, but also the services that it provides, the clean water, the carbon sinks that the trees provide. And I'm hoping that in the future that there will be a value placed on them so that property owners can look after their property, that they can truly value the trees and the vegetation they have on their property, which is sequestering the carbon. And in that way they'll be more able to look after their properties and provide the community with a way of taking some really positive steps towards addressing some of these major issues.